As the future of the Romanian president rests in the hands of his people, we ask, is this referendum to impeach the president a good indicator of the state of democracy in Romania? And is it the beginning of the end for Triain Basescu? Or will he manage to survive as he has before? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Triain Basescu. Romanians have been voting on Sunday to decide whether or not to impeach their president, Triain Basescu. The referendum was held after a government campaign led by the Prime Minister Victor Ponta. The international community has criticized that decision. Al Jazeera's Rory Challens has more.
Polls opened early on Sunday morning. The government wants as many people as possible to vote on the future of their president, Triain Basescu. He survived an impeachment referendum before 5 years ago. This time, it's different. He may still have the support of some diehards, but austerity measures and scandals have blown a big hole in his popularity. And now he has a ruthless opponent. The young, left-leaning Prime Minister Victor Ponta accuses the Premier of violating the Constitution and overstepping his powers.
President Basescu, it's a strong personality. He used to be, in 2005, 2006, the most popular politician in all our democratic history. Now he's the most unpopular politician in our democratic history. Maybe it's a person of extreme.
In May, the former Prime Minister, Mihai Ungureanu, was ousted by Ponta in a vote of no confidence. It was the start of a brutally efficient attack on the president's power base.
The result is a non-violent but very aggressive takeover of power and executive and legislative power.
Everything that's been going on in the Palace of Parliament would just be fascinating political theatre. It wasn't for the very sad fact that this is having a real impact on Romania. The country's currency is falling, its international standing has slumped, and Parliament has been paralysed for months.
The European Union has taken a particularly dim view of the feuding, voicing concerns about the state of democracy in Romania. But even some of those saddened by Romania's politicians admit the referendum may have its upsides.
When the political actors fight each other, we learn new things. We learn how much each of them stole.
Banners urging Romanians to vote hang in the streets. Anything under a 50% turnout would invalidate the result and save the president's career. More than 50%, and the polls suggest he's finished. But with a parliamentary election later this year, Romanians are preparing themselves for even more political hostility. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera, Bucharest.
So, is this impeachment referendum the beginning of the end for Triain Basescu, or will he, as before, survive? To answer these questions, we're joined by our three guests from the Romanian capital, Bucharest. Monica Luisa Macovei, a former Romanian Justice Minister. Ms. Macovei is also a member of the European Parliament. Also, we have with us Razvan Ionescu, a journalist and political analyst. And joining us on the line is Titus Corlatean. He's the Romanian Justice Minister. Mr. Corlatean is also a member of the Social Democratic Party. Welcome to all of you to this edition of Inside Story. Mr. Corlatean, if I can come over to you first. Your Prime Minister, Victor Ponta, is being accused by some of staging a coup. What's your reaction?
Well, many things were told during this campaign on the referendum. But if we want to have a really honest debate, I think the most important thing that we have to emphasize at this stage is the fact that there is a reality that a political fracture exists, and not only for today. It existed for already several years. Don't forget the fact that Mr. Basescu is in his already eighth year of the second mandate of being president, and he was not, unfortunately, and it was also confirmed by the Constitutional Court 4 weeks ago, he was not performing his mandate as president of being a real mediator within the society.
Right, but let me, if I can just interrupt you for 1 second, because your constitution specifically states that the head of state can only be impeached for only grave misdeeds. Have any been cited? What grounds are there for his impeachment?
The parliament debated on different points and acts of accusation that were raised against the president, and based on an advisory opinion that was given by the Constitutional Court, at least in 2 or even 3 points, serious or important issues were raised and confirmed even by the Constitutional Court. The first was that I intended to start and to mention it, the fact that the president didn't fulfill properly his mandate as president of being a mediator, a real mediator within the Romanian society between different institutions and political actors. He was deeply involved in the political debate and acting as a president of a political party and not a president of the Romanians. There are also several other points that were raised, and at one point, for instance, the Constitutional Court itself mentioned the fact that it's the competence of the parliament to decide on what was related to very bad conduct and very bad statements, discriminatory statements related, for instance, I can give you one example, to a ethnic group, the Roma and Gypsy community in Romania.
All right.
Was several times accused with bad words by the president. And
okay, just hang on 1 second, because you mentioned the Constitutional Court. Now, Victor Ponta himself has significantly limited the authority of the Constitutional Court. Your Prime Minister, in fact, has changed the referendum law to make it easier to get rid of Basescu, and some people say that this move is unconstitutional.
Look, in April this year, so only 3 months previously, Mr. Basescu and his majority in the parliament at that moment changed the rules of the referendum, to be very correct when we make some statements. After that, it was coming back to the legislation on the referendum that was in force until April. So during the years, there were several changes of the law on the referendum, and every and each model was confirmed by the Constitutional Court as being constitutional. Why? Because the Constitution doesn't mention in its text a certain level of participation of the people to validate the referendum. The court judged only the big values and principles of the Constitution, and different models, including the legislation that was proposed by the government during the years, was confirmed of being constitutional. But in the end, of course, the Parliament accepted the decision of the Constitutional Court on the last legislation, and this referendum is developing under this rule with a quite important level of participation for being validated. 51% of all the voters put it on the list.
Well, Basescu and his allies say that they're concerned, in fact, about the possibility of election fraud, rigging, unclear voter lists. Ponta himself got rid of the only independent ombudsman. Are there independent monitors keeping an eye on the voting going on in Romania, or how can you ensure that there's no voter rigging?
There are many, there are many observers, national and international observers, and despite the accusations of the actual opposition, and we're in the middle of a political battle, you can imagine that there are accusations, the institution of the state organized very well this referendum. I should say, for the contrary, the fact that the conduct of the president, who changed his opinion only after 2 weeks, when making an appeal to the people not to be present during the referendum for voting, which is a normal and a democratic procedure, not to be present, to boycott, it's a fundamentally undemocratic conduct. And this is not exactly that he transmitted to his European friends, saying that there is a need for letting the people to participate to the referendum, to express their will. For the contrary, now he's playing against the will of the people to let them to come to freely to vote. And I think that this is a very undemocratic conduct of the president and his team.
I'm going to bring in my two guests in just a moment, but if I can just stick with you for a few more questions, Mr. Corlatean, since we have you with us on the telephone. Now, the EU itself is saying that Ponta has won this referendum by trampling on the country's constitution. These are the words of the European Union, and resorting to emergency decrees to force the issue. Are you not worried that this move and this referendum will jeopardize relations with the European Union? Also, your membership, Romania's membership to the Schengen zone?
Look, several points of concern that were raised by different European partners, starting with the European Commission, were discussed in Brussels by the Prime Minister with the President of the European Commission, Mr. Barroso, and some other important officials. And it was a very fast reaction and a letter that gave already important answers to these concerns. And I think we advanced quite properly in diminishing the points of concern. We are very serious as concerns the interests of Romania. This is why, for instance, this government maintain the commitment and will maintain next week, because we have a mission of the IMF and the European Commission and the World Bank. We maintain the commitment and we are respecting our international commitments of the country. This is why we are transmitting signals of stability, and the economy, despite some movements of the currency, the economy remains stable, and the ratings of Romania were confirmed by the big agencies in the world. So this is why I hope that this political battle will end after this day, and we will reach a necessary peace within the Romanian society for letting the government to do its business related to the big economic and social issues, which are the most important for the Romanian people.
Okay, let me ask you this then. What happens if Basescu is not impeached by the people and in fact he stays in office? What will be the response from Victor Ponta and his party?
Look, at this stage it's still too early to mention what will be, first of all, the results. Definitely, it will be a huge majority of the people who will concretely vote in favor of the impeachment. I don't know. We don't know yet if those 9 million votes requested to validate the referendum will be achieved in the end, because it's summer. Summer is very hot, and still the presence of the people is a good presence, but not a perfect one. We will see. The Constitutional Court will make the assessment of the results probably tomorrow. And if the referendum will not be validated because maybe not of 9 million people being present, we don't know yet. But if this will be the case, the Constitutional Court already said a few days ago during a decision that it was taken that the Parliament will establish the next steps to be taken. So we will wait the result. Definitely there will be many millions of voters that will vote strongly in favor of the impeachment. We have to wait if there will be 9 million people that will be present to the vote.
All right, Mr. Titus Corlatean, the Romanian Justice Minister, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for talking to Inside Story. Let me go over to Monica Luisa Macovei, who's a former Romanian Justice Minister, in fact, and she's joining us as well from Bucharest. Good to have you with us. I wonder if you got the chance to listen to the Justice Minister speaking there. He made a lot of points. Respond to his claims, and do you think that Basescu should go?
I do not think, and this is not really about the President Basescu. It is about the democracy and the rule of law, which were suspended, to say nicely, in Romania in the last month. And if I may make a few points related to what the Minister said previously, you rightly said that in the Romanian Constitution, it reads that the President can be suspended only if he perpetrated serious facts which violated the Constitution. The Constitutional Court was asked the opinion on this, and there is no wording and there was no claim coming from USL, the Social Liberal Union, on which the Constitutional Court to have said that this was a serious fact to violate the Constitution. Therefore, the President didn't violate the Constitution. Now, all these emergency ordinances the minister referred to the emergency ordinance on referendum. I referred to changes taking place some time ago. I want to say one thing, and it's only information. The emergency ordinance, which eliminated the quorum needed for a referendum only with relation to the dismissal of president, to the referendum to dismiss the president. This emergency ordinance was adopted in the evening of the 5th of July. The suspension of the president took 2 days, 5th of July and 6th of July. On the 5th, the accusations were read. On the 6th, it was voted. Now, in the middle of this procedure, on the 5th of July, in the evening, Ponta's government adopted an emergency ordinance and changed the rule on the referendum, saying that it doesn't matter how many people come. So, which was the urgency? Because these emergency ordinances are if it's a calamity coming or an earthquake or something.
Razvan, do Romanians think that Basescu should remain in office? I mean, what's been the local reaction to his suspension and possible impeachment?
No, first of all, the Romanian people are very polarized now, like never in the last 22 years. I don't remember a moment after the 1990, exactly after the revolution, when we had a big fight between the ex-communists and the reformers, with this kind of polarization between people, between relatives, between friends. You can see this conflict also on social networks like Facebook, with people who are very good friends, and they enter in conflict on Facebook. I think we should understand Romanian democracy. It's still young after 22 years. And we should learn more than we learned till now. The democracy means also to understand when we disagree one with each other. It's exactly what happened between Basescu and his opponents, and it's also what happened with the people, with the normal people now. The people
but Monica
who support
Basescu, Basescu himself, I apologize to interrupt there, but Monica Basescu himself, in fact, has faced allegations of corruption. He's also faced allegations of voter fraud and impropriety since he became president, and his re-election to a second term, and that was in 2009, was itself marred by accusations of fraud.
This was what the opposition said after they lost. But accusation of corruption, I never heard. He was accused something related to the fleet. At the beginning of 90s, he resigned from the parliament to be investigated and to eliminate the immunity obstacle, and he was never convicted. But let me say again that this is not about the president. A president should be suspended if he perpetrated serious facts that violated the Constitution, and really the Constitutional Court is the one to find this, to decide on this. Even the political decision is with the Parliament, but a responsible Parliament should look at what Constitutional Court say. This is about the rule of law. We do not accept that we go to bed with a law on a referendum or on the Constitutional Court or on the official journal or many other laws, and we wake up in the morning with these laws changed by emergency ordinance. Maybe people don't know what these emergency ordinances are. They are like laws adopted by the government. They are published in the official journal, which, by the way, was taken by Ponta under his authority, also by an emergency ordinance. And they became law the next second, so they entered into force immediately. He cut the powers of the Constitutional Court to verify the decisions of the Parliament by an emergency ordinance. You never heard this in a democracy. And he did that because the president was to be suspended next day, and the heads of the two chambers of the Parliament by decisions of the Parliament. So he prohibited the Constitutional Court to look at these decisions by emergency ordinance.
Right, Razvan.
There are many other examples.
Let me cross over to Razvan, Monica, for just a second. Razvan, do you think that Ponta underestimated the reaction from the international community, because the EU has come out and has had some harsh words to say towards Ponta? And also, does this in fact cast doubt over the IMF, the International Monetary Fund's support for Romania?
Yeah. The first problem is Mr. Victor Ponta, the Prime Minister, has two kinds of speeches. One here in Romania and another one when he's speaking with international authorities, with international political leaders. Because for for the people who are speaking with him on the international political scene, it's very difficult to explain them how he and how Mr. Ponta and his partners suspended for 2-3 weeks the rule of law in Romania, and how it's possible in the strong democratic system to organize a popularity or a beauty contest for the president, because it's exactly what we have now. The leaders of Mr. Ponta and his partners organize this referendum also because they feel the most of the Romanian people are against Mr. Basescu, the President Basescu, because the economic crisis, because the austerity measures, because a lot of mistakes in the last 2-3 years in government for Mr. Basescu and his partner. But in the strong democratic system, the president could be suspended. An impeachment of the president, it's a exception. It's exactly how we have right in our constitution also. Only if we have acts, very grave acts against constitution, anti-constitutional, and we don't have this kind of acts of President Basescu. That's why I think today we have a popularity contest during the legal term of the presidency, exactly in the middle of a legal term of 5 years.
Monica, the economy really seems to be one of the issues at the heart of this political crisis. I mean, what's your take on the economy? Will the IMF suspend its loan program, do you think, in the wake of all this political instability in Romania? And also, does this set some sort of precedent for future governments for this to happen again?
I strongly believe that this will be a precedent not to happen again. Now, from the economic point of view, I don't know if the agreement will be kept, but definitely more guarantees will be asked. But I have to tell you, and you probably know, that the national currency dropped dramatically in the last 2-3 weeks because of this instability and because of changing the laws. And also all the investors, the big investors, stopped. They think they want predictability. So they think if you change the law overnight to serve your purpose, to dismiss the president, you can do that in any other area overnight. So I'm not going to invest in your country. And the same with the European funds, with the European Commission. So if they are not stopped and the rule of law is not reinstalled, all the population risks to be really very poor and not to get investors and to have a very poor currency, which is a pity because we are really doing fine because all these events within the European Union. And I'd like to say something to which the journalist before me mentioned, the double speech in Brussels and at home of the Prime Minister. He was in Brussels on the 12th of July and he talked to Barroso and he came back with a to-do list with a lot of things, which he didn't, but he promised he will. And when he arrived home the next day on the 13th of July, he signed a written agreement together with the other leaders in his coalition, by which one of their objectives was to dismantle the Constitutional Court, to dismantle the National Integrity Agency, to dismantle the prosecutor office, which investigates corruption, and to dismantle the office which is looking at the archives of the Securitate.
All right,
So
I'm afraid I'll have to jump in there. We've come to the end of the program. I do apologize, but we did get your message. Thank you very much, Monica, Luisa Macovei, Razvan Ionescu. I'd like to thank you for joining us from Bucharest, and thank you to our viewers for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. You can always send us your feedback. Email your thoughts to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks for watching. From me and the whole team, goodbye for now.